everybody. Welcome to this program again. Glad to have you here. So when we're talking today, we're not only talking to each other, but we're also talking to listeners who are going to join in asynchronously to hear what we have to say. So again, this is Advancement and Outreach's last program of the kind of calendar of the semester. I don't know how to say the school year. And we're talking about families with children in our family of friends. And so we have a number of panelists here from a number of different meetings who are going to be sharing. So this is how we're going to be organized. I'm going to open up to our panelists a number of questions. And what we're going to be doing in this time is we really want to hear about all the things, but we're going to concentrate in the panel on like what's working. What have we figured out that's working? So sharing best practices, sharing things that seem to be addressing some of the challenges that are inevitably a part of trying to get a fully integrated and really welcoming community for all generations. So we're going to be talking about that. And then after we're done with that, we'll open it up and anyone can ask and answer questions. And if you have questions that you want to make sure you don't forget, feel free to drop them in chat and we can be taking a look at that once we're done with the official part of the question asking. I know that there's a number of people, like we have more than one panelist from Ann Arbor, so I'm just going to assume that you're going to let you like look at each other and figure out who's going to be primarily asking the question or answering the questions from each of you. So we can make sure that we get all of the voices in there. So thank you again. And let's start out with our first question, which is, what have you found makes the meeting feel truly like a supportive community for young families? And I'm going to start with A. So let me start with Athens this time.
We do several things to make sure our younger families feel welcome. The first thing is probably when we get new families in, which we have been a lot lately, is just showing them like, this is the kid space. Going through, there's always two adults and doing like the safety stuff with them. Doing like a quick rundown that kids are always welcome in the meeting during meeting for worship, or they can be in the kids space. Being very transparent with the whole, if you want to be in the back with your kiddo, you can, or we can come and get you. If, whatever the signal is that they need you, we can come and do that. And then organically, this just kind of happened that with our older generation, they can't hear. So we started using a microphone. And now it is the kid's job to carry around the microphone. So the older people don't have to get up and pass the microphone. So we have kiddos that are designated with the microphone to go around. So they get interactions with the generations. So like 5 minutes before our meeting breaks, they all come out. They all get a turn with the microphone if they want to, carrying it around. It helps them feel like they're a part of. And it's a good way to teach them how to be safe around the older generation. And they're really picking up on it. So that's
Thank you
in a nutshell what we do.
That's awesome. Thank you for those. I just really love that theme of transparency, like just being really clear about all these things, letting people know right off the bat. So how about Ann Arbor? How would you answer that question?
Take this one, and Molly, you can chime in. Yeah, we do a lot of the things that Krista was talking about, just trying to be really transparent with families, having them, we have them register. Once we have their email address, they get like every family that has basically ever come gets a weekly email explaining like what our first day school program looks like for the little kids and then the older kids. And this last year, so we used to have kids, it's vacillated, but since I've been there, kids would come in at the last 20 minutes of the meeting. And we switched to having them come in for the first 15 to 20 minutes. And so everyone, like we've told new families, like all kids are welcome. It doesn't matter if they're making noises, you know. And I've noticed, and Molly, I'm sure you have too, a lot of people will sort of address the presence of the children as they stand and say something in the beginning, and the kids have settled into it and have kind of like found their own ways to like listen and stay occupied. So the kids are a lot more visible to the whole community, and I think that's been helpful for new families coming in to be able to see how welcome the children are.
Yeah, I would say I would echo all of that. I think the fact that the kids are a organic part of the meeting for the first 15 to 20 minutes until that week's first day school teachers stand and rise and we all leave together, and then we go downstairs together. And so they see a cohesive group of kids, and then then the rest of the community gets to watch that group grow over the year as more kids stand with us and leave. And then I also think we have these fidget bags at the entrance to meeting, and we've updated them this year with some more interactive toys. And I think also that signaled to parents that it can be a safe space for quiet, contemplative play. And so some families, their kids have started bringing in their own like little carry around art supplies, or my kids bring stuffies with them, and even sometimes sit under the benches or against the back wall and aren't necessarily with us on the bench. And all of that's okay, but then we all rise together and still go, unified out of the space. And I think all of that helps.
Thank you. We already got so many good ideas. All right, Diane, with your vast experience, tell us what we haven't talked about yet.
I think I have two things in mind that I really appreciate that our meeting does or has done over the years. The first, because Broadmead is both Toledo and Bluffton worship groups, my kids are kind of shaky when they were younger, about who were the grownups in Bluffton or from Bluffton that we only saw less than once a month at potluck or at business meeting. And so the meeting decided that rather than have parents sit with kids, although parents are welcome to sit with kids, at potluck, the kids go through the line first, and then the oldest grownups go through the line second. And the parents, would stay back and be at the end of the line. And then our meeting members consciously filled in the space around the kids and made sure that they were interacting with the kids during potluck. And then the parents could sit wherever we wanted, which is kind of a nice break. But also it was good to see our kids get to know people better. And that's when our kids started kind of connecting better in that potluck time where you're just sitting and visiting, but your parents are still in the room, but not necessarily with you. That's the one thing that I think helped me as a parent to have see my kids meet other people, but also to have a break. The other thing that we consciously have done is when we have, generally there's always a parent who's a first day school teacher. I think the challenge of having multi-age, like a 15-year span between the youngest to the oldest in one Sunday school class, it makes some people nervous about running a Sunday school lesson or first day school lesson. So we, as the older parents, or parents of older children, I should say, consciously make the effort of having the younger children's parents never rotate through first day school. So we always say, no, I'll be the second parent this week. Why don't you go on into meeting? And so for some parents of the younger kids, they've said out loud, they appreciate that, because it lets them go into meeting and not worry about their child. And I think those two things have been really good, because we always have one of the two people in the room as a parent, just by how it falls through or falls in place. And it's really nice to be able to offer that to parents of younger kids who probably need more of a break than parents of older children. So I think those are the two that stand out to me as things that we've done that I think were cool.
It might be just me, but I didn't quite understand the second parent system, and that I'm wondering if you could just describe it one more time.
So when I first got to meeting, Judy Greenberg had been the first day school teacher forever, and said, I'm done being the school teacher. I would like to go worship. And so then no one else wanted to step up because Judy had always done it. So the first few years, it was just we're a small meeting with very few children. So it was just the parents running first day school and never getting a break. And then about right before, so then it's configured a few different ways. For a while we tried having one first day school parent and then the second person be a meeting person, but the first day school teacher was still a parent, because that whole 15-year span is a little bit tricky, and or can be perceived as being tricky. And then sometime before COVID, we started having a not parent in charge of organizing first day school. And that helped, although generally the teaching of it still fell to parents, if that makes sense. So we've always had two people in the room, but it's been easier for our meeting, since our meeting is so small, to have one of those people always be a parent. Otherwise we
Got it.
run out of other people.
Okay.
So there's almost always a parent, sometimes two parents as the teachers. But as a rule, as our kids have gotten older, we encourage the parents of young children to not ever rotate through first day school unless they want to, and instead they go to meeting and enjoy meeting.
Got it.
Sorry, I
Thank
should have
you
been
for-
more clear.
No, that's fine. That's helpful. I think just to understand that it's always one room for you.
Mhm.
But that's a great segue into our other topic, our next topic, which is sort of meeting the needs as it's not just families with children, right? It's families with children of a bunch of different ages, and the needs of preschool families is very different from the needs of middle school families, is very different from the needs of high school families. So wanted to ask the panelists, and we'll do it in reverse order this time. What are ways, any positive ways that meetings are responding to the needs of middle grade and even high schoolers if they're showing up? Ideas, and Diane, I'm going to start with you because I know that your kids have shown up.
That's true. We're a small meeting, and we're not actually such a small meeting. We're a very small first day school program. We had, for a while, we had enough kids that we had high school and middle school as one first day school group, and we had anybody else. And then the younger middle school kids would flip flop. Like sometimes they'd go to meeting the first day school with the big kids, and sometimes not. And I think we were most successful with the middle school and high school kids during those years. One of the parents took the kids and opened the newspaper, took the older group and opened the newspaper and said, here's a current event. Now let's just talk about this current event and how we respond to it as Quakers. What are the different ways Quakers might respond to this event? And they would go get coffee. I mean, they'd just get coffee from the coffee pot in the meeting house. But the middle school and high school kids really appreciated having that be the focus, because they were starting to be curious about current events, and then it was current events with a Quaker lens. While you drank your coffee and you weren't in the room with the closed door, you were in the room that had lots of space. I feel like that was one of the best things we've done for high school and middle school, where we attended to their own needs. A lot of times our high school, middle school kids end up being play companions for the younger kids, which they also like that. I have several children who actually would rather hang out with the little kids playing with them than in a separate group. Right now, my high schooler is the only person in first day school.
Mm-hmm.
And so we rotate through two or three of us. And since it's just Andrew and we know everybody who's cleared to Sunday school, we've dropped that one parent rule, or one person rule. And as parents, we were okay with that, because we know well the other two people who run first day school. And Andrew likes Bible study, so he's been doing Bible study. But we said to Andrew, well, here you are. What do you want this to be? And he wanted Bible study. So that's what a grown-up does with him every week.
Thank you. All right, going to Ann Arbor. What are kind of ideas for the middle and high school?
Well, I would say that is an ongoing question for us as our kids get bigger and their sort of interest changes. one path that we have, you were mentioning a play companion that the bigger kids would do for the young kids, and we have a couple bigger kids that help out in the nursery, which is 3 and under, with the little kids, and that's something that keeps them engaged. And then we've sort of broadened our definition of what a big kid means within our first day school context. So we're sort of calling like 3rd grade and up our big kids, because we have such a solid, lower elementary sort of bracket that becomes our little kids kind of. And then I would say 3rd to like 7th grade is our big kids. I think they appreciate an opportunity to go out into the fellowship room and leave the kids' room that often feels chaotic and full of little kid toys, and do something that, whether that's cooking or listening to a podcast or doing a hands-on craft activity, something that feels, even if it's on the same theme as what the younger kids are doing, that feels separate and something they can claim for themselves.
Yeah, and another thing that we've been experimenting with to some success and some not success, is the big kids always, we make it like explicitly clear to them that they can stay in the meeting. And there's like at least one girl who's probably 14, who kind of regularly stays in the meeting unless we're cooking, and then she'll come downstairs. But that's also kind of, you know, we've been trying to be really explicit with the bigger kids that we know that many of them don't have a choice whether or not they're coming to meeting, and so they have the choice about whether or not they're coming to first day school. And sometimes we remind them of that if it is becoming a challenge, or if they're feeling particularly, I don't know, I was going to use the word restrained, but that was not the not the best word. But if they're not engaging with the lesson and they're not happy to be there, we remind them that they don't have to be. But yeah, we almost always have a big kid lesson, and when we don't have one, when they're all together, we're like very clear about it beforehand so that they can like, strategize how they want to spend their morning.
Krista, anything you want to add?
Yes. Just 2 things. So we have one like 13-year-old. The next youngest person is Gigi. So it's 10 and below. And then this girl started coming 2 weeks ago. And she's 13. Her mom came back, and now she's 13, and we're figuring it out. But when I was a teenager, we did this really cool thing, and I can't wait until this group of kids is old enough to do it. And it's this whole year of what is other religions and how do we differ. And when I was, 15 to 16 years old, that's when the unit happened in our Quaker meeting. And it not only challenged my way of thinking of like, am I a Quaker? Do I believe in this? But it gets them to experience what other religions are so they can make that informed decision. And that was like a turning point in my faith. So I can't wait to do that in 5 or 6 years with this group of kids.
Thank you for that. So we've talked about this a little bit, the integration. I think that some of what you all have been discussing touches on this, particularly around the story around the potluck and kids eating together at the potluck. But I think there often can be a sort of an us-them dynamic, like what do we do about the kids? Like as opposed to how are we as a meeting? And so I'd love to surface any other ideas of and successes around ways that you have managed to integrate the adults and kid populations, whether it's intergenerational worship or other activities, or how to make us feel like a community. And I'll start with Ann Arbor this time.
No, go ahead, Julie.
I was gonna say one thing that when I started coming wasn't happening so much. There was always like one person who would get up and say something, but we've tried to be really clear with all of our committees. If you're ever having an event, if you're ever having a forum, a memorial service, a wedding, anything, reach out to us and we'll provide childcare. And so it's been getting a lot. I'm the person who coordinates that. So I can say it's been a growth process and it's getting a whole lot better. People are remembering to reach out, but just having that available, it's not just on Sundays, it's whenever there's anything. If they want childcare, we find someone, one of our regular childcare workers, and that's been really helpful. So, and then just because I'm sure it's helpful for the children, but it really reminds the community that there are families, with childcare obligations, and so it just makes it more inclusive, I think, for everyone.
I go to
And I
Molly.
asked, who's the childcare? Who are the childcare people?
Yeah, we have a pretty stringent background check situation. So to volunteer with the children, you have to pass a background check. To work with the children, you have to pass a background check and have references. Molly, how many do we have? We have a lot. Like
I would say we have like a dozen volunteers who and or paid staff members who have passed that, have current standing, past background checks, past references, are cleared to be either volunteers or paid staff members.
Yeah, so normally, almost always, in fact, if it's not a Sunday, the people doing the childcare are our paid staff, who are mostly, people 18 to what, 25?
25. Mhm.
Yeah, and so we have a few like really solid people who are like always there and always willing, and then some new people we're kind of pushing through.
And so then
Yeah.
if membership and outreach committee is doing a forum, they will reach out to Julie and request childcare. And it tends to be the same childcare workers that we have helping us during first day school. So there's a continuity of care as well. And we're in a fortunate position where one of our paid childcare workers is the husband of one of our meeting members and worships with us. So it also feels like a family affair in a nice way.
So integration in that way is just like making sure that those other events are accessible to families and kids. Just making sure that that's a possibility. Is there anything else that kind of pops for Ann Arbor as far as connecting the kids and the older people?
Yeah. I would say I would add that we Michigan Friends Center is a space outside of Ann Arbor, and we it's on a lake, and we go there. Last summer we did 3 family worships out at the Michigan Friends Center at Friends Lake that were intergenerational and also included like boating and a potluck and swimming afterwards, and were meant to be more they were sort of semi-programmed, and they were inclusive in that way. And then I would also just sort of echo what Julie was saying earlier about, and we didn't make this explicit, but the vocal ministry that rises in those first 20 minutes when the kids are still in worship with us, it's pretty remarkable how perfect they are for the children that are still in that space. And it's so often that we get to hear the elders in our community thinking about their own childhoods or their own child rearing of their kids that are now adults and parents themselves, and in a way that then makes those same elders much more approachable at potluck, and just sort of demystifies them. And so I think I would say more than when the kids were coming in at the end for Joys and Sorrows, we've seen an actual back and forth between ages happening in that first 20 minutes.
Yeah, and one other thing, so we always have 2 nursery workers, 2 people with the younger kids, and then usually I'm me or Molly or one person with the bigger kids just in another room. But we also have the space on our complex calendar for a friendly adult presence, and anyone can join and just interact with the kids. And recently we've seen a lot of interaction from our young adult friends who are, what do we say, 18 to 35.
The span of what young adult means is getting much bigger. We now say 18 to 35-ish, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
These are people in their 20s who don't regularly work with the kids, but have something they want to share, who are volunteering to like step in and lead something.
Lead a lesson for a week.
Okay.
Something
Yeah.
they're passionate in, or do a craft activity. They led egg dyeing. These 20-year-olds wanted to practice dyeing eggs on Sunday with old ties, and transferring it using recycled materials. So they get involved in that way.
Cool. All right. How about Krista? What is Athens doing to integrate?
We have a picture board, and that's probably the biggest thing because the little kids love looking at pictures and asking, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Who's that? And then they get to go about once a month. They take the pictures and they go find the people, which is fun. Um, since becoming the co-clerk, there's been I've been like, I can't do this unless I have childcare. I can't do this unless I have childcare. Um, and that's really opened up the eyes of the Athens, like, oh, this isn't why families are attending, Quaker Eights and all this kind of stuff. Like, there's a kid, like, Quaker Eights, and we call it Quaker 16s because it's 8 adults and 8 kids, but they don't really have, like, parents don't go to the other Quaker Eights because they need childcare. And I kept saying this and over. So they're starting to, like, oh, so if Lita comes, which is our only paid childcare provider, if we have her on staff during these events, parents will come. And that's only started since becoming co-clerk. Let's see, what else? I mean, our kiddos are so in like ingrained with our elderly people. Like, they go and sit on their laps. They go, we have these cushions, and they grab a cushion when they come out to meeting, that they plop it down by not random, but like people they feel comfortable with. So I think it's just so part of our culture in Athens that I don't see it very very well. Like, what are we doing? We're not doing anything. It's just there.
Yeah, no, that's tricky to say, like what created that culture, because once you have that culture, it's easier just to have other things fit into it, right? But creating it is tricky, yeah.
Yeah, and like we have kids stand up and speak during silence sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not unnormal. So, I mean, it's the culture we've done over the generations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Diane.
I think the potlucks have been a huge part. The other thing that we do is that it's not, since COVID hasn't been scheduled as regularly, but we used to regularly have a deliberate second hour that was intergenerational, and intentionally so. And for a while it was, let's have an intergenerational second hour. Teachers, what do you want to do with everybody? Which was fine, but we said it'd be great if there can be other people helping plan it. And we've had some really fun ones. We've had a poetry jam. We've had when one member of the meeting passed away, and we listened to their obituary and realized that there were things about this person we'd never even known possible, even though we'd known the person grew up, like lived in the meeting. So we all wrote our own obituaries of what we would want people to know. And the kids did it too, of what we would want people to know, and it was really a lot of fun. We shared them with everybody, and it was a lot of fun. We did Mad Libs with smaller groups. The first day school program organized and made a Stump the Quakers game, where we split the groups into two two teams. And so our whole meeting played as two teams, and we had a big board. We used a big whiteboard to do points and who won. A few of our older friends were a little bit disturbed that we were having a competition at a Quaker meeting, but everybody else thought it was a good time. And then one of the other things that we did was a lot of fun was speed friending. So instead of speed dating, we had speed friending, and we did it when we were out at Van Buren State Park, which we do a couple of times a year. And you could go draw, like people who wanted to not have to be speed friending had the choice of drawing with one of our kids who did not want to be speed friending. And so there were picnic tables of choice, like you can all go over here and draw pictures, or you can all speed friend. And the speed friending, when we said, okay, it's time to stop and have ice cream, because you have to have ice cream at the state park, we had people who didn't want to stop speed friending, because you had 30 minutes and then you rotated down the benches and met other people for just a few minutes and then rotated, and people were a little sad that one ended. So we have activities like that where it's not as natural as what Krista is describing, but it's still a chance for the kids and the grownups to hang out together doing some activity that's enjoyable to everybody, but doesn't have any major purpose besides let's have a good time. And a few times a year we go out to one of the local state parks, local as close as we can get to between all of our meetings, all of our worship groups. And that's nice, because inevitably some of the people who don't normally join the kids and hike around the lake while everybody else is having worship. And so it's a different set of people hanging out with the kids. So we've done intergenerational activities like that, maybe quarterly-ish, approximately.
So this again, I feel like it's what you all have said so far has touched on this, because the needs are different. But I wanted to give explicit time for everyone to talk a little bit more about not just the kind of practical needs of these different populations, but the spiritual needs. So at one point, someone mentioned kind of contemplative play. I think it was the Ann Arbor people, contemplative play being welcome in the meeting room. So thinking about that as a spiritual thing, as opposed to just keeping them quiet, right? So thinking about like, what have we understood to address the spiritual needs of parents and kids of different ages in this process? And I don't know, Diane, do you want to start?
Let me think about this. I'm not sure, actually.
We'll come back to you. Does anyone have an
please.
answer right off the top of their head?
Mhm.
Krista's ready. All right, Krista, go ahead.
We do a few things. We do junior meeting, which teaches our kiddos what meeting is all about and how to participate in it appropriately and what you can do. And it's the week after our business meeting. So that's third Sunday. And then we have a bunch of kiddos that have either autism or sensory problems that just either need to make noise or need complete silence. Very, very diverse neurodivergent kiddos in our Quaker meeting right now. So we have like the calm down corner where they learn to regulate themselves, and we walk them through that when they're like, it's too quiet, or it's too loud, or no one's moving, or there's too much movement. So we do a lot of like teaching them to regulate, and how does that feel inside, and how does your spirit tell you when you're overwhelmed or underwhelmed, and that kind of stuff. Like really going through that process of like, I see that your spirit is trying to communicate that you are completely overstimulated. Let's go play with this fidget or build these blocks, and teach them how to recognize what they need in that moment.
Oh, Krista, we all need the calm down corner these days. Let's all get a calm down corner.
So, and it's like, It's dark. It's like completely dark, and it's underneath our staircase. So like there's curtains and there's weighted elephant and it's like cushioned. It's not padded, but it's like cushioned and there's headphones. Yeah, it's my favorite place in the Quaker meeting.
So awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I saw Julie, you also had a hand up.
Yeah, well, I think we've had conversations before about like, how explicitly are we teaching about, Quaker beliefs to the children versus sort of letting them explore it just experientially, like with adults. And I feel like this year we've struck kind of a nice balance. Molly came up with a lesson plan template where it's like you say what the theme is, you say what, the Quaker value is. Um, we bring the kids together, all the kids of all ages, not the babies, I guess, but all the other kids, and we sort of have an opening question to contemplate. And it's been nice I work mostly with the older kids, and so it's been nice. We kind of similarly to what Diane was talking about with the current events, we're talking a lot about current events and things like that. And giving them space to kind of figure out their own belief system around some of what's happening in the news has been helpful. And I guess I'm kind of rambling, Molly. I might let you take this one on further.
You got queries. You got queries is what I hear. Like, and you're emphasizing the light within. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, yes. No, I think the queries are the opening circle that where we're all together and our opening query, and talking about which of the spices this connects to. Well, helps sort of settle things for us, especially before we break up. And then that also gives us a place to talk about what the different ages will do. And those kids in the middle can kind of think about which age range they want to go to. And similar to what you were saying, Krista, or what I thought I heard you say, we also have a junior meeting for business. Is that what you meant, that it's a business meeting that you have with them? No, you meant a worship meeting?
So yeah, it's teaching them how to worship. So we do at youth retreat with Diane. So we have a kid appropriate query, and then we sit, and then we go around the circle, like worship. It's like worship sharing and learning how to worship share. Diane, can you elaborate with that?
You got the mute. You gotta take off
You're
mute button.
on mute.
Chris, I think you explained it pretty well. I think that because for youth retreat, we have the kids we have are, well, until this past year when it's Krista's kids and my kids, but most of the time it's a group of set of kids who we don't know what their spiritual background is. That's true enough for yearly meeting as well. And so a youth-friendly query, Krista said it, and then we share, but no one has to share. If it's always okay to pass, and that helps make it be a safe space too. But that, I think, is a great way for kids to share and worship without having to be silent or having to talk.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really interesting. And seems like something we could explore, but ours is specifically a junior meeting for business. And so we will have the younger kids will do an activity that's a group process activity to sort of emphasize what that is. And then the older kids will do something around making a actual actionable decision as a group. And so I think that helps put into physical practice what we're trying to talk about in a more abstract way. And then I also think in terms of nurturing their spiritual life right now, given the current political situation.
It's April 2025 if you're watching this in the future.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
No problem.
I think we're doing things to help bring the outside world that the kids are living in into meetings. So Julie created a lesson where we talked about what is or is not the right that ICE may have to come in or ask questions, or what role the kids can play. we made signs, and we're going to take the signs out into the community. And then talking about sanctuary and the role that a house of worship plays in sanctuary makes these spiritual things that we're trying to teach our kids really feel like tangible lessons.
In Ann Arbor, it's extremely concrete, right? You have still a person living in the meeting house with you, right? In
You can
sanctuary?
have someone in sanctuary, yes.
Yep, yep, yeah, yeah.
I just
Christy,
have a
go
quick
ahead, yeah.
question. So Athens is a very rural, and I see that Columbus is a bigger city. Are you guys, is Ann Arbor like a city, or is it rural? Like, I just don't know Ann Arbor very well, and I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm from a larger city, and as Molly and I are both from Washington State. I would call Ann Arbor a town, but Ann Arbor calls itself a city. It's where the University of Michigan is, so it's like 95% the university. So like 100,000 people?
180,000 people.
200,000.
It's like,
All right.
yeah, it's
Small
It's
city,
big.
small
not
city.
like teeny, but it's
But a lot of those people, like
feels like a pretty small town.
yes, and
Feels like a college town.
70,000 of those are students who aren't. Sometimes they actually do come, which is cute. We're housed by like a large row of sororities, just for
and we
a
also
delightful
yeah,
juxtaposition.
and similar to Pittsburgh, we have a residential facility connected to our. Am I correct that Pittsburgh also has that?
We have spaces we rent out but like as a standalone unit, and the people who live there are not connected with the meeting necessarily. It's just part of our property. Yeah.
Interesting.
So,
Okay. Yeah. So Ann Arbor does have a Quaker house, which has or has the capacity to hold, I guess, probably a dozen people. I think there's like 7 people that live there now. And historically they would have helped on committees and probably helped with childcare and been the meeting worker, but now they pay rent, and some of them choose to worship with us.
Okay, I just wanted to like get the lay of the land, and for whoever else is watching this in the future.
sure. I will say that Ann Arbor and Pittsburgh are the bigger 2 meetings in our yearly meeting, and then we have a lot of small meetings as well in the yearly meeting. So the resources that are available to both of us are, in some ways, are different, and yet when I'm listening to what you all are doing in your first day school program, it's very different and much more sophisticated than what we are offering in Pittsburgh. So it depends on sort of like how things are run as well, and who's available, right? Who's available for these tasks. I've asked most of the questions. There's one that I kind of feel like we've answered. I have more questions that I didn't give you in advance, but I didn't want to renege on the promise of opening it up a little bit more. I know we've got Barbara and Jana and Valerie and Patricia, and I'm just wondering, are there questions that are on your minds that you'd like to ask each other or ask the panelists? I want to make space for that. Yeah, go ahead, Barbara.
So I heard mention in Athens that you have a lot of new families that have come in, and I'm just curious for any of the panelists how these families find out about you, what draws these families in. Are you doing anything concrete to get the word out, or how does it happen, if you know?
Yeah. That's a great question. I started attending in 2021, or 2022, and I didn't know. I mean, I Googled it, and then I came for a while, and then I saw like 2 other kids, and so I started bringing my kids. It was like fresh off of COVID, so a lot of we had the requirement where like unvaccinated people couldn't come in person, and so because children were vaccinated later, that like a lot of kids weren't there. And then kids started filling in. I mean, sometimes families will bring a friend, like older kids will bring a friend, but mostly it's just sort of Quaker curious families find us. And because we have a pretty, like, with the university, it's like people come and go a lot. And so I've found we have families that try us on sort of and then don't return. And then we have some that come sort of sporadically or a few times a year, and then some who just show up and don't stop. And I don't, I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why they remain, other than that it seems to be working for them in some way. We do have, Molly and I talked about this afternoon before this call. We have one woman who has worked with our children and families for years and years, and she used to be the convener of the committee, and she's since stepped down. But when she sees a new family, like, she will go introduce herself, she'll make sure they know exactly where to go. Like, she really is that point person. To make sure that they keep coming back. Yeah, Molly, do you have insights as to why we keep getting families?
Yeah, no, I think you touched on a lot of things. I think there is in a way, almost a converse positivity about not having a super formalized religious education experience for families, because then if your family's here for a fellowship and they're in for a couple of years, they're not signing their kids up to some big thing that they're going to have to then pull them back out of, or it feels easy to drop in for a few times and try it on and see if it fits your family. And the parents aren't required to help. So I also think that frees parents up in a way that allows them to explore their own spirituality and their own spiritual needs, and trust that their kids can do the same, but not in a way that's conscripted. And I think that's appealing for people.
Follow up on that with all the panelists who want to respond. We've talked about sort of the spiritual lives of kids, and what we haven't named specifically is the spiritual lives of parents. And I'm wondering if there's anything that we would say when we're talking about attending to the needs of families with kids in our family of friends. Like, what do we find parents needing that we could be speaking to, or that you have found ways to speak to?
I would say this is something we have not yet found a way to speak to, but I think is an ever-present question and is only going to get more that way as our children age and as our society gets more tech-driven. And that is the role of technology in our kids' lives, within our meeting, both like hybrid or unplugged meetings, but also within which kids in first day school have phones, and what happens if they try to bring the phones out, and what does that look like, and can phones be at potluck? And I think we could create spaces for not just supporting rules during first day school that we make, but also for creating spaces for families to have conversations about navigating technology use with our kids.
Thank you.
I feel like parents of young kids need naps and encouraging. I mean, Diane knows, like, I used to come to LEYM to take naps. Like, that was the sole purpose of LEYM and youth retreat. And I know so many parents that do that, and encouraging our parents, and hey, if you want to lay down on the bench and take a nap, and if that is what you need, we will cover you up with a blanket and leave you to nap until you are ready. Like, and that's something we encourage because we need naps. And we need that time. We need that plug in. We need that as a mom of challenging kiddos, and just looking back and looking how exhausted my mom was when I was a kid, like, having that space for young moms and young dads to just either nap or have that space is, and reassuring them, like, this is hard. Parenting is not easy, and having that elder or that grandma or grandpa figure saying, yes, I've gone through this. This is the hardest part in your life, but it's the greatest. Like, and having that intergenerational component of, you are doing a fantastic job. Just wait, close your eyes, and take a breather and plug in.
Thanks so much, Krista.
I love napping. I think that we should just have a napping room. There were a couple of things that I wanted to mention briefly. One is that on the fourth Sunday of every month, so like it sounds like is happening in Athens and Broadmead. Primarily our teachers, though we have paid staff, our teachers are parents usually or grandparents. But on the fourth Sunday of every month, we have a volunteer crew who do a cooking lesson with the kids so that the parents don't have to be there, which is really, really nice. They offered, and we eagerly took them up on it. So that's kind of a lower impact volunteer thing for those folks. And it's nice because they're getting to know the kids and the kids are associating them very positively with these like silly, fun cooking lessons. But another thing that I've noticed is it happened kind of early on for me. It was like right after kids came back to the meeting. There was a family that they only came back a couple of times, and maybe this is the reason why, but they had a child who was throwing like an audibly loud tantrum for all of meeting in the children's room, and you could hear everyone quietly trying to do it, but it was so loud. And we all just kind of sat there, and at the end, the number of people who stood up, and said something like, I'm so impressed. That child has such a strong voice and will surely be a leader. Like when the kids do misbehave or do, struggle in some way, that we can all hear or see, or, the number of like kindly adults who aren't parents who stand up, or who are parents of adult children, will stand up and kind of acknowledge it, but with such grace that it is just allows families to be like, okay, my kid is welcome here. There's nothing they can do that are going to make them an outcast, or, we haven't embarrassed ourselves. So I think for new families, that kind of ministry is really nice to hear, because it's just saying like, these are kids and we're all people, and everyone's welcome here.
I just have to say,
go ahead.
I was that mom where my son Zeke, for I don't know, six months to a year straight, all he did was scream at the top of his lungs during Quaker meeting, and I was given love. So yes, that's very important.
I have more questions, and we probably have time for just one more, but is there anything else from anybody who's not on the panel that you want to ask? Okay, well, let's finish up with kind of a segue. You've mentioned, I love these ideas for kind of teaching worship before kids are ready to go in and sit for an hour, like the way that you teach kind of awareness in your body and also what your mind can be doing. But I was wondering, again, this is kind of 202 level, but like the segue of kids from first day school into worship. And is there anything that anyone would share about how that happens in your meeting that is would be interesting for others to hear as well? Yeah, go ahead, Diane.
This is not formally written down, like when they're this old, we do this, but we kind of judge, we're a small meeting that we judge like when is the kid ready to go sit in meeting longer. And sometimes we go in several waves. We go towards the end, and sometimes the kids who clearly are not ready to sit in meeting longer do another path around the woods and then we send a few kids earlier. And thankfully it doesn't seem to bother anybody in meeting that we're coming and going. I mean, we try to be quiet, but we're kids, you can't be quiet. And I appreciate that it allows us to say, okay, Sarah's really ready to go to meeting, and so is this other grown up, and so is this other kid. So they're going to go now, but we're going to finish building our blocks and crash it as loud as we can, and then we're going to go. And I appreciate that our meeting generally is not bothered by the noise, like what Krista was saying, and doesn't seem to be bothered that we're not coming in quietly all at once. And that's nice, because on an even day, we sometimes have grown-ups who come join us because they were either in meeting and couldn't get settled and they come join us, or they were late and just join us, or they were like, what are you guys doing today? You're hiking in the woods, let's go. And so there's this, it's not completely fluid. It's definitely more of the kids program joining the meeting, but it's kind of individualized when you're ready. And so Andrew sometimes will be like, I don't want to do first day school today. I'm just going to go to meeting. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we kind of are at time. So Diane, you're going to get the last word. Is there anything quick that anyone else wants to drop in real quick? Okay. I don't know if this will work for you. It's an article that's been going around from the Atlantic on Quaker parenting. Actually, the woman who wrote it used to go to Beacon Hill when I was at Beacon Hill. So I know her, and I wrote to her and said, everybody's talking about your article. She's out in the West Coast. And so that was fun. But in any event, if you can access it through that link without having Atlantic subscription, so much the better. But really appreciate these ideas. Just thinking a lot about what's possible as far as really opening our culture to all the wonderful diversity that is families with kids. And you guys have given a lot of great ideas that I know other meetings will be really grateful for. So I'm gonna stop the recording. Yeah.